breaking into my house.
Oh my goodness.
Row home in Baltimore, knocking on the door with his hood up over his head.
Oh my gosh,
and
you should know better.
I'm looking through the peephole thinking, this is it. This is how I end. And I stood inside the door wondering what I should do, and he calls me, and I said,
From the other side
yes.
of the door.
And he goes, and I said, Marty, there's somebody outside my door. He goes, it's me, open the door. So a year later, he proposed the exact same way.
Oh my gosh.
Showing up on my doorstep in the middle of the night.
That is hilarious.
Yes.
What a great story.
So
I'm sure your kids love that story.
They do. They think it's hilarious. And he always wears hoodies, so it makes sense.
So now, is he a youth minister as well somewhere?
He was.
Yeah.
He was. He does marketing now.
Okay.
Youth ministry was not sustainable with 5 kids.
Yeah.
You know, all of the hours.
I get that.
So we both ended up leaving ministry for a little while. Mm-hmm. And obviously I'm back in it now. But just a different age group. I did high school and middle school for a while. But that's, you know, my heart is now kind of tied to the younger kiddos. So.
Well, you know, being a professional youth minister, I have to ask this question. Why is it so hard for Catholic churches, really any church, but mostly Catholic, to have great youth ministry?
Oh,
what's the deal?
Right? It is.
I mean, am I wrong? Isn't that an issue?
We look at Protestant youth ministry programs all the time and think they know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly.
Right? Like they have these great programs, and I think part of the problem is the Catholic Church for a really long time put a lot of their weight in the older generation and sustaining the ministries that fed the older generations, not realizing that they weren't catechizing the younger generations.
So it was just, you know, a blind
It was
spot.
blinders. And I think now we were blessed with this gift of John Paul II, right? Like in his love of the youth and him starting World Youth Day and really putting a spotlight on the fact that the youth aren't...
Thank goodness.
Yes, they are not the future of the church. They are the church right now. And if we're not catechizing and enriching their lives young, what makes them want to stay around when they're older? So I think that, you know, and then I also think really diving into a deep sacramental life is so key. And if we can impart a love of the sacraments to our kids from a really early age, then they'll have a gift of faith later because they'll know to go to the sacraments when they are struggling or when they are weary.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, there's so many people that again, through this program and other places where I've heard people just leave the church at a certain age when their parents don't make them go anymore. They're done.
Yeah.
You know. And so what is there to draw them back unless they have what you just said?
Right, exactly. And so people leave the church in droves because they don't understand the beauty of the sacraments.
Yeah.
They don't understand that what draws us to the Lord is a sacramental life, the Mass, confession, you know, all of those beautiful gifts that God gave us. And when there's not an understanding of a love of the sacraments, what would keep you here? There's rules, it's really, you know, like the music's not always wonderful. And when we put our focus onto the people of the church as opposed to what is the church, right? Like then what would keep us here? Yeah. Everybody is wounded by someone in the church. I had a priest who you know, broke my trust completely as a child, and there was a huge scandal. He was like my favorite priest growing up, and he ended up leaving the church, leaving the priesthood, and getting married to our church secretary. And it was like this horrible scandal. Now that could have just driven my whole family away from the church, right? Like this man who professed this love of God just left and left us. But people are broken, right? Like the church isn't broken. Like the people that make up the church are broken, which is why we need the church.
Exactly.
Because the church is perfect, and the church is what feeds us. And so when we can find our solace in that, it's okay if we have to shoulder a yoke that is heavy and broken, because we have the church to fall back on. We have Christ in the sacraments.
Yeah, we have Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, the central focus. Growing up Protestant, Jesus was a focus, but and this is not against any Protestant denomination, but communion was maybe once a month or whatever, and was not integrated like it is in the Catholic Church. I'm a new Catholic, and so I'm getting to appreciate all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, even as much as last night, I discovered the Laudate app. Has everybody known about this for like a decade, and I just found out about it? But all the things that are there for us, to nourish our relationship with Jesus. And I think that's what you were talking about before in terms of faith formation. We're really talking about the relationship.
I think we can look at like Protestant and Catholic faith and the one thing that we can strongly put our foot down on as Catholics is that we have this love of the sacraments, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember going to a Protestant youth group when I was younger, and we were all in the church part of the building, and they had this altar call, right? And people were like walking up to the altar. And
been there, done that.
Right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I was sitting there, and even as a high schooler, I was watching this happening, and I'm thinking, when I go up to communion as a Catholic, I'm walking towards the tabernacle. I am walking towards Jesus, right? But like as a Protestant, what are you walking towards? Because you don't have Jesus in the sacrament of the Eucharist. So like, what is your focus? And I think like when we talk about that as Catholics, like, and we say, yes, this is an attractive, the Protestants offer something very attractive because it's beautiful and the music is good and the lights are good and the message is strong and they know their scripture so much better than we do. Mm-hmm. But the one lacking thing that we can't deny is the Eucharist, mm-hmm. right? Like, mm-hmm. what feeds you? Like, what draws you? Like, what are you walking towards?
Well, if I were to answer as a former Protestant, and still plenty of Protestant in there, we're walking towards a commitment.
Relationship.
To a relationship.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything real concrete.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the things that drew me to being happy to be Catholic is the concreteness,
gives
the
you
physicalness.
Mm-hmm.
Even kneeling and, all the physical things that you do with your body involve me. I've said before, maybe not on this program, but I've often felt that for years, going to church, and I'm still prone to it, I take my cerebrum in and my whatever that body part is called, and then I take it out, right? But now as a Catholic, I take my whole person and whole self in and out. And, I think, what are we walking up to? We're walking up to wholeness.
Yes.
Really.
G.K. Chesterton said, I love G.K. Chesterton. He's like such a nerdy, wonderful, wonderful read. I could eat him up. But he said at one point that your mind is like an open mouth and it should be closed on something solid. And for him, that solidness was the Catholic Church.
Wow.
Like, we are supposed to have an open mind. We are supposed to have good dialogue with our Protestant brothers and sisters. But at the end of the day, like, when we close our mind onto something solid, what is that? And that's what you just said. Like, your whole, like, we're walking towards something like that. And that's the Catholic faith. That's what the Catholic faith encompasses, is this solid substance that you can close your mind on. And it doesn't make us closed-minded as Catholics, right? But it gives us this essence of truth that we can wholly encompass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel complete now in having come from a wonderful Bible background.
Yes.
And now into the Catholic Church, I feel so much fuller in my faith.
Yeah.
Wow, AnnaMarie, this was great. Thank you so much. I think we're going to call it a day here.
Thank you for having me.
We're very happy that you're working with St. Joseph, and our children are so blessed to have you, and we wish you Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And join us again for another journey, and we invite you to share yours.